Localizing your game can be complex. The lowest barrier entry way to do this is to do language localization or internationalization or I-18N. Simply put, that's just taking your native language, maybe English, and translating whatever text you have to another language, somebody else's native language. Unity provides a powerful tool to do this, simply called localization. Hey, Chris here from LlamAcademy. Here to help you. Who? Me? Yes, you! Make your game dev dream become a reality by helping you target a broader audience for your game. Some studies done in 2022 found that PC and console gamers in Asia Pacific found localization to be between very and extremely important to them. Another example is in Brazil, PC and console gamers, 81% of them said that localization was between very and extremely important to them. In primarily English-speaking countries, it can be taken for granted that, oh, everyone just speaks English. And while a lot of the world does speak English, we can see from these studies that it's still important to have your game localized in the native language for those people. That makes your game much more approachable and much more likely to sell in that country. Let's take a look at how we can provide different translations for all of our text in our game using the Unity Localization Package. In this video, we'll look at localizing an existing game that uses UI Toolkit, mostly because most likely if you landed here, you already have a game and you're looking to add localization. Like I mentioned earlier, we're going to use the Unity Localization Package, which we can install by going to Window, Package Manager, and then on the Unity registry, if you look for localization, we've got this package, which was last updated, at least at time of recording, January 13, 2025. If we click install on that, it'll take just a second. And the documentation for this package is quite good. I'll have a link to the documentation in the description for the specific relevant pages for what we're looking at today. Once that's done installing, we can close the package manager, and we're going to want to go to Edit Project Settings. And in here, there's a new menu option called Localization. It'll most likely tell you that you don't have any. So you'll say, yes, I want to create some localization settings. Where you store this isn't particularly important. I'm just going to go straight in the Assets folder. Now we've got a menu allowing us to add locales. And a locale is just a set of parameters that defines the user's language and region. So we'll want to add some locales, and we'll be presented with this modal, which will allow us to choose some language. For me, I'll choose English and Spanish, but you can add as many different languages as you would like. As you can tell, there are a ton here. Let's click Add Locales, and it's going to want a folder to place these. So I'll just make a new folder called Locales and select that folder. That's going to create some assets for us that we're going to use in a minute. We'll see those available locales are added here at the top, and we've got a default selected down here, which is English in my case. This is a really great package, and you're going to see a lot of really great features as we go through this that just make this really easy. You'll see that we have a locale selector here. The command line locale selector will allow whenever we launch Unity to specify a language. So if the platform allows the user to say, hey, I want to launch this in this language, you just pass that argument -language equals and then your locale code, and that will overwrite the locale for us. If that's not provided, it's going to choose whatever the system is set up because of this system locale selector. And then there's a fallback where it's going to pick English if it can't do any of these other things. And you can, of course, choose any default that you have already defined as your available locales. That's pretty cool. That's all that we have to do in here for now. Next, we're going to come up to Window, Asset Management, Localization Tables. We don't have any localization tables yet, so we need to create one. That's this top left button. We're going to want to make a localization table, and it'll ask us to select which locales this table supports, as well as what type of table we're talking about. The two available types are strings and assets. So strings are just what we're going to display to the user, which is probably what you intuitively think about when you think about translations, localization, internationalization. Typically we think about, okay, hey, I need to change this word or this label or whatever to match that target language, which is an important part. But to really have really good localization in your game, you may be changing out textures, you may be changing out audio clips because you have voiceovers, you may be changing out a lot of different things. In the we're going to swap out this label use cases, that's when you'd select this asset table collection. I'm going to have a string table collection and call it menu labels and say create. And I'm going to put it in my locales folder. And I'm also going to say that I want to preload this table because I'm going to need these right off the bat. Now all we have to do is add keys and then the values that they should be. So if we take a look at my game, let's just go ahead and run it real fast. We can see, okay, I've got this main menu with some buttons, play, about, how to play, and exit. If I'm playing this game and I'm a native Spanish speaker, I might want it to say all of these words or something similar to these words in Spanish. So how can we do that? Let's leave play mode. And over here on the localization tables, I like to structure keys, and I've done this on large scale web applications before. You need to be really explicit on these keys. So I like to do it in a nested segmented key based on where the key is used. For this example, we're dealing with the main menu and some buttons directly on that page. So I'd give it the main menu dot and then the button name, play for the first one. This ensures that we don't have any conflicts and each key is unique and we know exactly where it's used, which is very important as we scale our game up in size and complexity. And we can just provide the English and the Spanish version of each of these words, like play, about, how to play, exit. And we do this for all of the labels that we have in the main menu. If we save this, let's take a look at how we can then use these in UI Toolkit. You have probably come in and have like a button and you have some text that says play. Instead of just hard coding, hey, this text is going to say play, if we click on this and say add binding and change the type instead of default to be a Unity Engine localization localized string, we can select an entry and say, okay, hey, main menu dot play. And we can see, okay, here's the English and the Spanish values. Don't click the X, make sure you click add binding and you'll see that it gets locked. Hey, this is a binding. It's going to happen automatically for us. So let's repeat that process for about. On the text, add binding, choose a localized string, select an entry. This one is about, add binding. And I'll do it for the others real fast. Then let's see it back in the play mode. Okay, it looks the exact same. It just did all this work and it just looks the same, right? Now up at the top right, we've got this locale selector. So if I choose Spanish, in real time it changes from English to Spanish. That's pretty cool. Then all these other modals, we would do the same thing where we localize each little piece of text, add it to our table, and hook it up with the data binding. If you're like me and you don't love to use a UI builder, you find it kind of tedious, you can see here underneath a UI button with the text of play, we can override that with the bindings tag and then add in a Unity Engine localization localized string and say, hey, we're going to bind to the text. And then what the heck, how am I going to know this GUID? Well, you can do one in the UI builder to get this, but then how are you going to know these entry IDs? You'd have to inspect the localized table and that seems like a pain. We can just specify it by name, so the table name of menu labels. And by the entry key ID, that's the main menu.play. If we come back to Unity and click play again, we'll see it's the exact same. So even with those changes, we can see that it shows up here. So we can tell that we can give our localization tables a name and then reference the keys and then build it just like that in UXML as well. But what happens when I don't just have static text, I need to show some dynamic text? That's a great question. Let's open up the runtime UI. In my runtime UI, I have this level X, which probably should say whole X. That's just a label that needs to show a number after it, right? Well, just like before, we can go to text, add a binding, do a localized string. And since I haven't already made it, let's add a new table entry right here, add it to my menu labels table. Let's call the entry name runtimeui.level. For the label text, we're going to want to put whole, and then in curly braces, whole number. In Spanish, that's going to be hoyo, again with that whole number. But then how do we know what whole number is? Well, that's in this variables down here. We can add and say, hey, I want to add a string or even a localized string. In my case, I'm going to choose string because this is technically a scriptable object name, and we'll call the name the same as what we have up above, whole number. And if you want to give it a default value like 1, we can do that. Then we can add a binding here. So this doesn't look right, whole number. So let's edit the binding once more. We actually have to mark these as smart. If we mark them both as smart, we'll see that it now allows us to inject this placeholder. And there's a lot more we can do with smart. It truly is a pretty smart string. I'll have a link to the documentation where you can read more about this. This is the most common use case where you need to just inject some value into your string. And that's the only use case I have in this game. So if we save this and come over to the code where I'm setting this label, right now I'm setting the level label text to be a template string with level and then this level data name. So we've got now a non-localized way where we just set the text to be a static string, but we can get a localized string by doing localized string. We can just call it localized string, level label.get binding, and then which value are we trying to get the binding for? It's the text. And then we know that this is going to be a localized string. So we can do as localized string. Then we want to set the value of this localized string's variable. We do that with localized string keyed by, then the variable name that we added, which we called whole number, and then that is a string, right? So we can do as string variable, and then we want to set that value. So we can put parentheses around that and do .value. And then we're going to want just whatever we had before, the level data.level.name in my case. If you don't use the correct type here, like if I had whole number as an integer, then it would actually give me an error because it couldn't find a whole number that is an int variable. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm doing this fast and loose, all in one line here. Let's come back to Unity and choose like level 3. We'll see, here we go, we see whole number 3. And if we change to Spanish, Hoyo 3. Perfect. We can see how easy Unity's made it for us to provide localized content in our game using this localization package. From the easy UI toolkit integration to the intuitive scripting API to a lot of powerful features that we didn't even talk about in this video, this tool really makes it easy for us to provide that localized content to give the gamers a higher quality experience in their native language that they want, which should translate into sales of our games in those countries where the gamers really want that localized content, which is pretty much everywhere. I know we didn't talk about the asset localization and the asset localization table. If you are interested in more content on localization, let me know in the comments so I know that this is a really interesting topic for all of you. And if you got value out of this video and you want to show your support for this channel, there's a few ways you can do that. You can check out my shader graph course, link in the description. You can get yourself LlamAcademy merch right here on YouTube. You can use the affiliate links in the description to do your Humble Bundle or your Unity Asset Store shopping. And if you're getting a ton of value out of these videos, you can become a YouTube member or a Patreon supporter. Your recurring monthly contribution there helps tremendously. And you'll get access to a private members exclusive Discord. You'll get your name up here at the end of every video and a shout out starting at the awesome tier, like Ivan, Iphiobolus, Jason Hansen, Snedden, Trey Briggs, Will B, Mustafa, Nick5454, and Pixel Wizards. There's also all of these great supporters as well. Thank you all for your support, and I'll see you on the next video.